Good morning. This is Ron. Welcome to Story Time. It is Wednesday, January 11th, and it is about 6:20 a.m. And I'm recording this on location at the Pasadena, Colorado Boulevard location of Lovebirds. So the selection I have for you today is from the Rake, and it is a which issue is this? It is, July. It's July 2016 issue, and it's an article in the back of it. It's called Safety Match, and it's basically an editorial. And it's written by Tom Chamberlain, and here we go. Trigger warning, safe spaces, microaggression, the Stepford student. Academia is suddenly awash with disturbing Orwellian phrases that are signaling a shutdown of debate on campus. Be warned, the subversion of intellectual free thinking is a poison not only for higher education, but for the health of our societies. The world just doesn't seem to agree, from the European Union to the U.S. presidential elections to nuclear deterrence and the treatment of refugees. You're regarded either as a bleeding heart lefty who doesn't live in the real world, or a right-wing, immigrant-hating fascist hell-bent on inequality and post-imperialist belligerence. Though it may be nicer to agree, diversity and debate is far healthier for an intellectual development and better governance. So why, oh why, is there a new generation of academics who want to park free speech and debate and create offense-free, safe space utopias on college campuses? When something as innocent as a God bless you after someone sneezes is seen by students at Occidental College in Los Angeles as microaggression, when there are threats of violence against men for arguing both sides of an abortion debate, as at Oxford University, when universities no platform people because their views may be offensive, these examples suggest that the young are now learning within the sphere of influence of the most sinister sentinels of censorship since McCarthyism. When an officer from Britain's National Union of Students brands the campaigner Peter Tatchell a racist and a transphobe with no evidence to back up the slander, it is no different to screaming, "I saw Sarah Good with the devil," "I saw Goody Osborne with the devil," "I saw Bridget Bishop with the devil." While Arthur Miller might be posthumously smug that he was so pertinent when he wrote The Crucible, we should be worried about what can no longer be called higher education. We have laws against incitement to hatred and violence, but students seem to have no interest in acknowledging the principles of free speech that doesn't infringe these criteria. Brendan O'Neill wrote a fabulous article in The Spectator on the rise of the so-called Stepford student, which aired bemusement at the hatred of the white middle class by white middle class students, those who feel that anyone who isn't white and middle upper class is in need of protection, as they are too weak to defend themselves. So terms like trigger warning, microaggression, safe spaces, and so on have been invented, and undergraduates like the Yale student who screamed at a tutor for creating an intellectual space, the nerve, rather than a home, because she knew better, of course, became international news talking points. The list continues. In April, a student at Edinburgh University was warned that she could be removed for violating safe space rules. Her crime? The heinous act of raising her hand when she wanted to say something. Apparently, she indicated disagreement by doing this. And in this particular meeting, which happened to be about boycotting Israel, disagreement was not allowed, as it was seen as potentially too traumatic, presumably for those who were intent on winning, which ultimately they did. At this point, you might be thinking, surely this is a parody. You must be exaggerating and satirizing political correctness. No, this is not a joke. This is happening to the next generation of graduates. This is as bad as the Zika virus. Abnormalities in intellectual free thinking is a poison for society, and it is atrocious that it continues. We have decided to destroy this movement. The idea is to absolve students who refuse to listen to contrary ideas of their educational burdens by expelling them from university. It is wasting serious people's time and energy. And your Politburo-esque censorship in the name of protection of others is insidious and not welcome in places of learning. This may seem draconian, but it isn't if you care about the future of our society. Years after we're gone, our progeny will inherit this earth, its ozone layer, greenhouse gases, and fossil fuels, or lack thereof. The sociological aspect is entirely down to the humans who inhabit it at that point in time. So why would we want to lend a hand to those who do not take higher education seriously? Which we do by ignoring this behavior or dismissing it as a phase. How would it be advantageous to waste time trying to pass the baton to people who see the world in a light that doesn't exist? In other words, one without debate and the rigor that comes from arguing your position to someone who has other views. Differentiating between what is right and wrong is a key activity in the construction of decent, liberal, not to mention free societies. Democracy is exactly that. We hear two arguments and decide which is right and which is wrong. How can it ever be acceptable to close disagreement down? Well, frankly, it cannot be. But there are some who are too high on their own self-righteousness, busy trying to pull down statues with people they don't like the look of, as per Cecil Rhodes' statue at Oxford University. There's a precedent, and that precedent is science. Science has a culture of peer review, meaning students and academics have to assess evidence and opinions that may not only be contrary to the reviewer's beliefs, but could potentially refute work they themselves have produced. The scientist is duty-bound to assess in an unbiased, open-minded way, and they ignore this culture at their peril, since they will not go far and students cannot expect to graduate. So why is this not the same throughout undergraduate culture? Why can these Stepford students not see that had scientists adopted the same attitudes to free speech, debate, and disagreement that they currently espouse, the world would be much more stupid, less safe, less interesting, and less livable place? Imagine trying to argue that the world is round when all the sensitive religious folk non-platform you for disagreeing with them. The problem also lies in the blatant abstention of all responsibility for their children by parents who took for granted the values they learned in early education. In 1876, Sandon's Education Act stipulated that parents were responsible for ensuring that their children received basic instruction. There's nothing more basic than being open-minded enough to hear differing ideas. So if, as a parent, you know your fully grown children have neglected to develop normal levels of maturity, you've effectively broken the law. May I remind you that while you may consider these freedoms and values as self-evident aspects of a democracy and human interaction, they are very much not. And there are plenty of other nations in this world where you might, in certain circumstances, find those rights swiftly taken away. This turnaround is, of course, very unlikely. But a mini version is happening in our academic institutions. Drastic times call for drastic measures, and I urge the chancellors of any university worth its salt to employ this notion of exclusion for cause and get to teaching those who truly wish to be taught. On an additional note, if during this piece I have set off any trigger warnings, please go to your safe space, as this magazine is not for you. But neither is the real world. And that was Safety Match by Tom Chamberlain in the July 2016 issue of the Rake magazine. And I think it's very well put together, and I think it's right on in terms of its the point that they're trying to make there. And kind of ironic that it would be, again, academia, the universities in which is supposed to be championing free speech, that are now in the process of shutting it down. But I also think that Ayn Rand was correct when she was saying that basically the chickens are coming home to roost in a lot of these academic places, because where these microaggression issues are taking place are on, by and large, liberal campuses, Yale, Occidental, etc. Where they're not happening is in places that are conservative, such as Hillsdale College, where they don't take any federal money. You can't go to Hillsdale College and use federal loan money, for instance, because they won't accept it. And they don't accept it because then the federal government has the ability, of course, to get in their business and tell them what they can or cannot teach, and a myriad of other things. But again, you don't find this kind of activity happening on campuses such as Hillsdale. I think it's a delicious irony that the kind of activities that I've just read about, and there's also another one in which that happened not too long ago, a couple of months ago, at a university in which two college professors were basically hounded out of their jobs, and it was done by a bunch of students that would cry. They'd ask a question. If they didn't get the right answer, they'd start crying like a small child, like they were 2 or 3 years old. And the professors just quit. And a lot of college professors now are, supposedly liberal college professors, are now understanding that these types of activities are most difficult on them because they're the ones that are being targeted. Perhaps because the students are thinking that since these college professors are supposed to be liberal, that they should know better. But again, it's just another example also of the exercise of power. The idea that power is what moves the world. It's the end-all and be-all of existence, and that right and wrong have no place in society. And that's incorrect. Anyways, the next episode of Storytime will be on Friday. I guess it's Friday the 13th, January 13th, 2017. And thank you for listening. And I am on Facebook, Ronald T. Hardgrove, and Twitter, at Ronald Hardgrove, if you care to make any comments or suggestions. And other than that, we will see you on Friday, and I hope you have a great week. Goodbye.